I'm excited to have with me today David Roman of Genius Positioning. And David, among other things, is a 5-1 reflector. So he's going to talk us through a lot about positioning your brand. And it's a different process than what a lot of branding people go through online. It's a lot deeper than that. So welcome here, David. I appreciate having you here.
Hi, Vickie, and hi, everyone. Thanks for having me.
So the first thing people always want to know, because reflectors are such unicorns, does that get old? That's one of the things I want to know. Does that get old? People thinking that you're a unicorn?
No, I'm fine with it.
No? Okay. Can you talk a little bit about how you found human design?
Yeah, so I came across human design in 2020 during the pandemic. I was doing a lot of TikTok scrolling, like a lot of people, and I heard quite a few people mention it. And eventually I just thought, let me just look into this. I ran my chart with the time that I thought I was born at, and I came out as a projector. And I was like, oh, hell no, this is not me. Deleted everything. And then a few days later, came back to it, asked my mom what time I was actually born. And once I got that correct, it came back as a reflector. And when I started reading what all the different elements of the chart meant, everything made sense. It felt like it explained my life in a way that I couldn't even articulate myself. And so that was in 2020. Since then, I've been studying it myself. I've also studied with Human Design for Business Institute, where we met. And I'm now incorporating it into my consulting business, where I help people identify and position their genius using human design as one of the tools.
And I've been through that process myself with you, so we are definitely going to be talking about that. Mm-hmm. I want to know, what was it about being a projector that you were like, hell no, that's not me?
I can't remember exactly. It must have been one of the strengths that was tribal. And I was like, there is nothing tribal like as a primary strength for me. Okay. There's nothing tribal for me. And yeah, I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was at a time where I was dabbling in a lot of astrology and different esoteric things. And I got burned a few times because I kept spending money on different charts and reports and so on. And I thought, no, you're not going to get my money. This is a scam. But then turned out to be, one of the greatest discoveries I came across.
Mm-hmm. So there's so many questions I have about being a reflector. What about the 5-1 piece?
5-1 piece took me a while to understand, like pretty much all the other elements of the chart. And I'll just make a side. Being a reflector, it's so much harder to reflect on yourself because we change so much. Mm-hmm. So I think this is quite common with a lot of reflectors, where all we really want is to pinpoint exactly who we are. And that's like the definition of being a reflector. You're not one thing. It's just nuance, because on certain days you feel stronger than on others. But being a 5-1, again, it explained a lot of my experiences where I would naturally say something. Even as a kid, it would just roll off my tongue, didn't think anything of it. And I would be the only person that would trigger the adults into actual rage, like from teachers to like neighbors and family members, in a way that I've never seen them react to anyone else. So that's the 5, that's the 5 sharpness, one way that it expresses. And the 1 is really fitting for myself. So I am very much a book nerd. I get my security, my confidence from studying and learning. So whatever I need to do, I need to watch videos, read books and so on before I start it. Even with podcast interviews like this, it's so different, our approaches, where you just like turn the mic on and start talking. And I need to have like a script. I need to know ahead of time what we're going to talk about and have like things prepared. So that it's just interesting how that shows up over there. But that's just one aspect. And then when you take it to the business side, of course, it gets a lot more nuanced and beyond the business as well, because business is not everything that we're here to do. So, 5-1, I feel like it is one of those things that made me realize that this is true. It's definitely true. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's something in my business that I deal with a lot with fifth line profiles, is that youngest version of you that said the thing that made everybody uncomfortable or made everybody mad. And then you just gradually start to dim your light and dim your voice and cover it up with, if you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all, and all of those messages. And then you go to have an online business where you have to actually speak your truth as a fifth line, because that's what we need from you. And it is so hard to peel off those layers of conditioning.
Yeah, I see this a lot in my social content and so on. This is my third business that I started, and it's one of the biggest blocks, like the biggest resistance points for me. So I have no problem setting up all the, doing all the technical setups. As soon as I have to voice my point of view, which I have a lot to say, there's a lot of resistance there. So that's what I'm working through at the moment.
Okay, I'm going to, there's a question I have about this, but then I'm going to go back to the reflector piece. I always talk around the mulberry bush, as you know, so just be patient with me.
It's fine.
So you are a businessman at heart. And I think that that's one of the things that you and I, when we met in Human Design for Business, we were like speaking each other's language, because there's a lot of people in the human design and esoteric space, especially, who are thinking that they don't have to do business because I'm a projector, or I'm a this, or I'm a that, or I'm the other thing. I'm not picking on projectors solely here. But you and I have this view of like, no, there are things that need to be done. Business is business. And you've always been able to do those things. So can you speak a little bit to your experience in the business space?
Sure. So I'm not a natural business person at all. It's been a very difficult road for me. So at my core, growing up, I was an artist. I still am an artist. But up until my 30s, up until my Saturn return, my primary worldview was as an artist. So I graduated with a degree in fine art. And I remember it was like the last week of university, and I was in a library. And it was like, okay, so now I need to bring this art into the world. How do I do that? And it was the first time where I had to wrap my head around marketing. Like, okay, to get your art into the world, you need to market it. And I just remember it was this completely alien concept for me. Nobody in my family, even extended family, is entrepreneurial. So I had no sort of model of that. And since graduating, I've had a lot of jobs. I've done my art and, my day jobs in parallel. And I ended up in the marketing world through doing web jobs and then marketing, and actually spent a decade in that area. And over time got quite good. In 2024, I got my certification as marketing strategy and leadership. I got my certification in marketing strategy and leadership from the Digital Marketing Institute. And that consolidated a lot of my experiences. And these experiences have been very difficult for me. But having worked with hundreds of businesses from complete 0 point to massive brands like Sephora and so on, I have firsthand experience what it takes to market yourself, to put yourself out there, to make sales, to put systems in place that work. So what I see online, especially in the coaching world, are a lot of coaches have been trained by coaches who have been trained by coaches. So it becomes very circular, and people have massive blind spots. Because as you said, at the end of the day, business is business. No matter what industry you're in, the fundamentals are the same. And no matter what type of business you run, the core pillars are present in all of them. So you need visibility. You need to let people know that you exist. You need to build trust one way or another, and you need to make sales, and then of course deliver. And for each one of these, there's hundreds of tactics and systems and models and so on. And all of them work, right? So that's not the question. It's more so figuring out what works for you. And having worked with so many businesses up until this point, I've learned to recognize patterns, and merging this with human design, niche it even further into matching what's right for a person. And by working with so many businesses, I've learned to recognize patterns and be able to match marketing activities that suit a person with established business principles.
I think that's the best of what people can do who are entrepreneurs at heart and who have come up in the regular business space. And then when we add human design, it's magical. So I've had the experience of working personally with you. I feel honored to have gotten to work personally with you. And I had the experience of looking for someone to help me with my branding because I knew my brand had really changed over the course of 3 years. But everywhere I looked online, I saw people talking about fonts and colors and pictures, and I was just so over it. I knew that I wanted to go deeper, especially with that second line profile of mine. I really wanted to get to the depth of what is it that I'm here to do. So you took me through a process that you take your clients through now with your business hat on and your human design for business hat on and your reflector hat on and your 5-1 hat on. Can you talk a little bit about the process that you take people through and how it's different than the regular branding space?
Sure. So there's a fundamental difference between positioning a personal brand and positioning everything else. So like corporate, product-based businesses, tech, and so on. So there are a lot of branding and positioning frameworks out there, and the majority of them are either suited for non-person facing businesses. So, for example, Jaguar has rebranded and, those types of big corporate things. But when you're looking to position a personal brand, especially when it's in a coaching or the personal services space, the product is the person. So the coach is the product. So in most cases, the products are either physical, it's technology, or it's a big conglomerate like, say, Apple and so on.
Or an influencer that everybody loves to think they can brand like.
Yeah, exactly. So when you position those things, it's a completely different approach than when you position a person who markets themselves as a personal brand and provides a personal service, because that person is the product. So for example, if you try to position a physical object, say I have this flask over here, you would look at the attributes of the object, like what materials it is, the size, how, eco-friendly it is, and so on. When you position a coach or someone who provides a personal service, the attributes of that person, their history, their education, their values, the transformation that they bring to the marketplace, those are the attributes of the product. And it's just so rarely talked about, but it's also fundamental when you zoom out a bit. And the challenging part is for people to depersonalize themselves and take a step back and look at themselves objectively in order to pinpoint these things that make them unique, that make them stand out. And that's what we did with you. And it was a very interesting process to dive deep into this. In my process, I go through, it's a 4-step framework. So first, we uncover your genius. So this is a foundational stone of positioning. And this is where we use human design and other introspective questions, as well as some market research of your past clients. So number 1, we uncover your genius. Number 2, we position this genius. So this is where we look at the marketplace, the context in which your business runs, and what the other options are that your ideal customers are considering when thinking about a solution. So, for example, who should we talk about? Say a yoga teacher, right? Or like a yoga instructor. The person who is looking for that service is not necessarily comparing a yoga instructor with 10 other yoga instructors, right? It's either I'm doing this, or I'm doing an online course, or I'm going for a hike, or I'm doing something completely different. So the solutions that your ideal clients are considering is not picking between one or between you or one of your peers. It's actually much different than that. And we want to position ourselves in a way where what you're providing is the obvious best choice for what the person needs. And this is where we need to get very clear and specific. We don't want to be unethical. Like, we want to definitely understand what their pain point is. And if what we're offering is not the right match for them, be upfront about it and actually turn them away and point them in the right direction. So that's the second point. We position them. Number 3, we create a world around your brand. So this is, Vickie, where when you looked at the marketplace, you were seeing people talk about brands, brand colors and fonts and all of this pretty stuff. So this definitely plays a role, but it's not the entirety of it. Also, when we talk about world building, this is a much more holistic approach to a personal brand, which is different from the traditional approach, which says, just have a couple of content pillars and pick a couple of hobbies and talk about them. And, that's going to lead to sales. When you're a coach, when you're a service provider, people don't just buy your service, they buy you as a person and they want to buy into your world. And it's up to you to proactively create this world. You don't want to let people imagine or fill in the gaps for you. And this is a really powerful way to proactively create this and really turn up the volume on the magnetism of your brand and make it so irresistible that the more time people spend in your orbit, the more attracted they are to committing to working with you. And then finally, the 4th step is we create a marketing system, a lean marketing system that's custom designed for you. So instead of copying other people's funnels, processes, and so on, we go back to the root of your essence, like your genius, and build a marketing system that fits that. Because one marketing activity that may be really efficient for one person could absolutely drain somebody else, right? So you, for example, Vickie, it's very easy for you to record. Podcast is very natural. You can just do it on the fly. When I record videos, I can do maximum 2 a day and maximum 2 in a week. And it takes me a lot of energy and focus to do so. So for you, that would be like a very easy primary marketing tool to use. Whereas for me, it's still valuable. I just need to organize myself a lot more differently. So in this 4th step, we create a visibility, trust, and sales system that is fit for your genius. That's the most natural and I don't want to say effortless, but it takes the least effort based on your design.
I always call it the path of least resistance.
Yeah.
Because I think we take a lot of the struggle out of it. Like, there's some days that I don't want to do a video or podcast episode, but it has to be done. But it's ease versus easy. So even when we look at, because you use the podcast episode, you as a 5-1 reflector, me as a 2-4 Manny Jen, your strategy with podcasting, you know that podcasting is important, you know that audio is important, but your strategy is to guest on podcasts. Whereas my strategy is to use my motorized throat and have a podcast. So it doesn't mean you choose whether you're going to do it or not. You just lean into your design for how you're going to do what you're going to do in your business.
Exactly. Yeah. And also taking into account my wider design, for example, I prefer to work in seasons or like sprints and so on. So for example, at the moment, I'm doing a little podcast tour. And once I finish it, I'll, go and do something else. So I'm not committing myself to like consistent long-term things, which plays into my inconsistent nature as a reflector.
That's one of the things that I loved. I love that I get to learn from you, both from the 5-1 perspective and the reflector. I feel like I've got this front row seat sometimes for business stuff. But you said to me one time, I'm never going to commit to something that long a term again because I don't know who I'm going to be at that time. Yeah. And that really, it goes back to you saying, well, it's hard for us as reflectors because one day I'm this, one day I'm that. I don't even know if you can put that into words, how that feels, but can you try to put that into words, how that feels in your life? That difference in consistent energy?
Yeah. It's personally, I've had a lot of shame associated with it and a lot of pressure. So this is both mainly from my art business, where naturally every 2 years or so, my art style changes significantly. And it's not necessarily something that I want to do. It's just like my brain switches and I have to drop everything and move on to something new. And I look at other people who have had a consistent style for like, either across their career or at least for like a decade. And it's a lot easier, like just in terms of like product management and stock and so on, like it's a lot easier to, leverage consistency. Whereas when you change all the time, I have to like just constantly scrap my website, remove all old works that I don't want to sell. It just makes me feel like for a long time, it may feel like there's something wrong with me. Like, why do I have to keep changing so much? Like, is it because whatever I've been doing is not the right thing? It's just a lot of that. Also in business, the world is kind of set up for consistency. So we see that both in the algorithms, but also with branding and the way you portray yourself online. So if you say you're this kind of person or you offer this product, right? It's much easier if you sell that product year after year after year, because the hardest part is launching a product. And if you naturally evolve and say after a year, this product doesn't naturally feel aligned with you anymore and you have to drop it. Yeah, I find it's a more difficult role. But what I'm learning now is to proactively position myself and communicate that whatever I do, it comes in seasons. So at the moment, I'm offering this, and I'm not going to commit that a year from now it's going to be the same. So I'm just I'm just learning it as I walk it.
I love that. And your social is David Reflects Genius. And you said to me a long time ago as well that you have always done that in your life. You've always recognized genius across all of your careers. You just have this thing that you do. What is it that you do?
Yeah, so similar to you, Vickie, I've been that, high achieving kid that, had to be the best in class and so on. So I've been surrounded by the smartest kids growing up in high school. And it was so easy for me to recognize the genius of each one of these kids and where they shined the most. And then in my art business, I capture the essence of movement at its best. So I've been painting a lot of athletes in the past and so on because it represented physical skills or excellence at its best. Now I'm pivoting again and it's becoming a bit more esoteric, but it's again the same thread of genius. And we're in a period now where we're rediscovering what it means to be a human and what our highest expression is, because we're going from an era of workers where humans were defined by their work and labor output. And a lot of this work is now being taken off the table. A lot of this work is being taken off the table in a very obvious way. And while, yes, that's scary for pretty much everyone, it also frees up this time and mental capacity. And in this space, I think it's essential. I think this is my role right now with my art, to prompt people to question like what their highest expression is. And as a reflector, I naturally see this in people. So it's just interesting how across two different businesses, the same sort of life theme expresses itself.
You're using your gifts.
I'm doing my best. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I would like to reflect on my personal experience of working through this branding process with you, if that's okay. So one of the things, as you know, I'm a second line, which can be something where we question our own gifts. Like, I think everybody does that though, but second lines, I feel like it's kind of on steroids. And the process, some of the things that I really loved about your process, one was the reflective questions that you asked me didn't feel like I'd done them 100 times before. Because there's a lot of people in this marketing, branding, positioning space. All the questions are always the same. but yours were a little bit different. And I like that. One of the things that you said when I interviewed you on the Pulse that really was like, whoa, and it's making me come back to my own table a lot and be like, okay, Vickie, but you said the outcome that people get, or the biggest outcome that people get, shouldn't come as a surprise to them. Like, it shouldn't be this, oh, wow, I wasn't expecting that. They should expect. And that was really profound for me, because a lot of the work that I did before was kind of like a best kept secret. This past week in Content by Design, I still have to share this on socials, but I got so much feedback around, I've been stuck for years, and this finally brought me back to myself. That's the power of human design. But I was like, I better get talking about that. David would have me talking about that in my marketing for sure. And another piece was actually asking my favorite clients, what was the alternative? Because I think that's something that we assume we know who we're up against. And I mean that not in horrible competitive terms, but competition is real and we have to look at it. And the answers really surprised me. They weren't what I would have expected. So I think that's really worth diving into with you, is who are you actually positioning yourself against, for lack of a better word? Because you're probably way off track with what you're thinking your people are thinking. I hope I'm saying that in a way that makes sense.
You said it perfectly. And I feel like until people actually do this work, they won't understand how profound this realization is of what people's actual other options are before they decide to work with you. And it's got nothing to do with competitiveness. And actually, I love this bit that Seth Godin said in one of the interviews. Actually turning people away and pointing them in a different direction, like to a different coach, a different resource, a different solution, is actually an act of service for that person. So we're coming on the back of this bro marketing, where sales was get on that 15-minute call and whatever objection they have, turn it around into yes, basically. And not only is that so horrible for decision making, which with human design, we see how people make decisions. And some people, it would be wrong for me to ask someone to make a decision on a call. Like, it doesn't work like that. So we don't want to carry on what the bro marketers did, where we try to persuade people that we are the best choice. The highest service we can do is be really empathetic and look at the data, ask people for feedback and see what they're actually considering, and understand that that's the context within which they're making a decision. So for example, someone is trying to climb a mountain, right? There's 3 routes up the mountain. One is through the forest, one is going by a lake, and one is, going through some caves. All 3 take people to the same place. If you know that someone prefers caves, it's your duty to point them in the direction of the caves, even if that's not the service that you offer. So that's what we're doing in this exercise here. We're understanding what people's other options are, and positioning ourselves against it helps people understand why you're different. And it actually simplifies and makes the decision easier, whether it's to work with you or not to work with you. Because if someone's not right to work with you, you better know that up front, because it's going to be such a pain and it's not worth it.
Yeah. And I think that if you've been around the coaching space for a while, you've probably had a few clients that were like, oh my God, how did we get into this? Well, we get into this because we're not clear on our own message and because we're not clear on our own brand position. And I love too that you said, that's why I asked you to repeat it a while back. Basically, you're saying you are the brand. And this is something that I feel like there's so much resistance around, where people don't want to own the fact that you are the niche, you are the brand. Yes, you want to niche down to the problem you solve and all of those things and have your positioning right. But people are buying you. If you're a personal brand, people are buying you. So it's so important that you position yourself well for what it is you actually do and who it is you actually serve. And I love your process of getting us there.
Yeah, you've been at a lot of events, when there's a lot of similar types of people in the room. And if you go in there and you just say, I'm a business coach, or I'm an ADHD coach, I'm a life coach, that's even, that's even more broad. There's no way for you to stand out. Like, how do you differentiate yourself in a room of 100 people who do the exact same thing as you.
Mhm.
It's not about being the loudest, and it's definitely not about trying to be the best, because believe me, there's always going to be someone who's better than you, smarter than you. And if you're competing on trying to be the best, eventually you end up competing with people like Tony Robbins and like the big players, and you don't want to compete with them. Like you don't want to compete with them.
Yeah.
What you want to do is tap into your uniqueness. So it may be 100 of you in that room, but you are Vickie. You're a woman of a certain age who's lived in a place, who's experienced certain things, who has some internal drives from past experiences or family upbringing or trauma or whatever. There's some internal fire that makes you pursue certain types of work, certain types of people, and bring certain types of solutions. So even if everybody else is a business coach, you may be a business coach that deals with women over a certain age in this situation with this mindset, who have this pressing need to make a certain contribution or achieve a specific goal in a certain way. So you see here how many layers of differentiation there actually are.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't proactively pin them down and communicate them to the marketplace, how are people meant to know this? Like, how are people meant to know to read your mind? What people do is fill in the blanks with what they have, and you don't want to let your brand be at the mercy of other people's assumptions.
I love that statement. Don't let your brand be at the mercy of other people's assumptions. I think people are often scared to niche down that narrowly. They're often afraid to say exactly those things, but that's where the money is, really. And that's where the excellent clients are. That's where the clients are that you really, really want to work with.
But that's how people resonate with you. That's how people understand what you're about. And just a completely different example here. For example, Taylor Swift's music. She's talking about wearing a cashmere scarf on a specific street on a summer day, seeing some boyfriend that looks like XYZ. Millions of people don't have that experience, right? They may not be women, they may have completely different life experiences. But when you spell it out in such detail, people are able to relate to it. And as a byproduct, right, she's got like a massive impact. So this is, the foundational piece of storytelling, where the more in detail you describe something, even if somebody else hasn't exactly experienced it, they're able to relate to you. So the same thing goes with branding. The more in detail you can describe who you help and what you do, the easier it is for the right people to find you. And even if somebody doesn't 100% matches that description, it doesn't mean that you can't work with them, right? Like, for example, Nike markets themselves as apparel for elite athletes. And how many of us are elite athletes, right? So we still wear the brand, we still benefit from the products. So you can go really niche to help find your best clients. And then you can still work with people who are degrees out from that, but it's going to make everything so much easier.
Yes, agreed. And I love with your process, of course, I love it because it's human design informed, but it's actually taking your own strengths and your own gifts and saying, okay, this is inherently who you are. How do we use this?
Yeah, that's the big difference between traditional branding and even personal branding and human design. It helps us tap into things that may be completely unaware to our conscious mind, but maybe it's still a massive driving force or a massive skill in your day-to-day life.
So where can people find you online?
Sure. So I'm on social at David Reflects, on LinkedIn, David Roman. And for the experienced coaches, so established coaches who've been around for a while, and they're getting clients, but they want to scale and they can't imagine working twice as much to make twice as much money or more. I created a resource which goes over my genius positioning framework. You can get it for free at yourgenius.co. I'm going to give Vickie the link to put in the description. Go through that. It outlines my process and is going to help you understand the pieces you need to stand out and differentiate your personal brand.
Thank you for that. I know when you shared a resource like that on the Pulse, a lot of the feedback we got was, "Oh my God, he's giving this for free." So I appreciate you doing that for our listeners, and also the established coach piece, because it's important that people have data that they can use to do these exercises. This is probably not for someone who's getting their first client.
Exactly. I see this a lot where people are in the beginning and instead of doing the work, they just accumulate more and more resources. And if you get this information out, it's not going to help you because it's not at the right time for you. So I'm applying my own advice.
Yes.
And I'd rather have less people in my world that are a better fit.
100%. Well, thank you for being here. I appreciate you. I'll link up all those things in the show notes for you so that you can get David's best resources. And thanks for listening today.
Thanks, Vickie. It's been a pleasure.